When the whole family comes together to watch the game, nobody wants to miss a second of the action to run to the grocery store. With Instacart, you can get all your weekly groceries in as fast as an hour. Less time shopping means more game time. Let's go. Visit instacart.com to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. $10 minimum per order. Additional terms apply.
Welcome to the PowerCat Podcast, GoPowerCat.com's Kansas State Athletics Show. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, from the GPC studios, here's your host, GoPowerCat publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the PowerCat Questions Podcast. This is the third time I've done the open because the crew is not in unison today. Tim Fitzgerald, Zach Carlson, we're okay. We're doing fine.
We're fine.
Cole Carmody and Ryan Gilbert, we don't know what's going on with them. I think they've been like huffing helium or something. Hey, you know what? We're sponsored by The Fridge. They don't serve helium there, but they have other stuff that'll give you never mind. I don't know where that was going.
You were close.
I was close. I kind of couldn't come up with the right word. Get into The Fridge. It's a home game this weekend, next weekend. Make sure you stop in. If you're looking for that bottle of Wabash Reserve, they have it at The Fridge. Our segment sponsors are Tanner's and the High-Low. We are in a hurry today because Ryan Gilbert has to go to his other job, which is slinging drinks for degenerates at a different bar than our two sponsors. I can't name the name of it because they're not a sponsor, but it's a fine establishment. It's a fine establishment.
I think he's leaving because he doesn't like us.
Well, he can't read. We've already established that.
A lot of us here can't read.
During the first attempt to record this podcast, I think he had a stroke. It's okay. He's back. On the second attempt, Cole had a little breakdown, and now Zach Carlson is taking over the reading of the questions. He is the Alexander Haig of this podcast.
I don't get the reference.
Okay, there we go.
Starting off from KNED, has Booth Memorial Stadium reached a point that the Big 12 needs to institute minimum stadium requirements to host football games, such as things like having functional plumbing for everyone in attendance? And he included a picture of the porta potties, which I experienced at halftime because I didn't go up to the press box. He also asks, what % of KU fans in the end zone premium seating garbage bar with porta potties were in there thinking, no way, Silo Tech has something this cool? Zach, how embarrassing was that thing? I think it's embarrassing that they call it the Field Goal Club.
I know. Instead of the touchdown.
The touchdown club? Come on.
Like they're just happy with the field goal.
Field Goal Club in the North End. It's kind of lame.
I know why they did it, because it's right behind the goalposts.
But they kick a lot of field goals. That's why they do it.
Oh, my gosh. The whole thing's embarrassing. I did some of my daily delivery on it. It's getting so bad. I hadn't been over there. I didn't go 2 years ago because of my health. So I hadn't been over since 17. And in 4 years, taking 4 years off, or 3, depending on how you look at it, to see the deterioration of the facility over that period, it's astonishing. They're to the point of no return with it. They're either going to have to fix it soon or tear it down and start over. They're so indecisive about what to do about their damn football facility because, let's be honest, they don't want to spend money on football. They want to spend money on basketball because that's all they care about. That's all they care about is basketball. They would love to not be embarrassing in football, and yet they won't give the football program the tools it needs to not be embarrassing. If they really have the money to tear it down and start over, they need to start the process of figuring out how we get around the fact that it's a memorial stadium. So it's a historical site. Do they leave up walls? How do they do that? They need to work it out. They need to figure it out. They need to build a damn stadium. Play in Arrowhead and the Sporting Field for 1 year if you need to, maybe 1.5. Start over, Kansas. It's an absolute embarrassment. You are the Vanderbilt with lesser academics of the Big 12. Vanderbilt's just leeching off SEC money and they don't fix up their stadium. You're doing the same damn thing. You take all the football money and put it into Adidas boxes and hand it out to players, I bet. I don't know what's going on. It is, you don't have plumbing anymore. And you know what's amazing about it? They don't seem embarrassed.
They don't care.
They don't care. They don't realize how bad it is. It's like when you guys walk into my house and it probably smells like dogs, but I don't know it smells like dogs because I'm around it all the time. They've gone nose blind to how crappy their stadium is. It's an absolute insult to the rest of the Big 12 that we have to go visit that crap fest because that nice new press box, I don't know how old it is now, Zach, but it's getting there.
It's got one elevator.
It's the elevator service is horrible, and now even that nice press box is kind of falling apart.
What's crazy is, this is not an exaggeration, Wichita State's football stadium is just as nice as KU's. The stadium that hasn't hosted a football game in 35 years. That stadium where they have the Kansas State track meets or whatever, that stadium is just as nice as KU's. It looks the exact same. You can't convince me otherwise. That was an awful experience. And let me just say, too, I was calling the game for the student radio station, and even their own students, they gave them a table that if you touched it, you would get a splinter. And you know, they put the K-State film people, the KU film people, all up on one part of the weather deck to where at K-State it's nice and spread out. There's room for everybody. But they just jammed them up there and said, here you go. This is what you're doing. So, I mean, it was like something out of the 1980s. It was pathetic.
Ooh, that long ago.
And unfortunately, I know the 80s were a good time, not necessarily in K-State football, but it feels like KU football is stuck in the 80s still.
I agree.
Yeah. I couldn't believe the porta potties when I went around the corner there because I wasn't going to go up the one elevator up to the press box at halftime. I just hung out. Weather was nice. Saw the porta potties and was just like, no, not doing that.
So you went to the bathroom on the field?
I waited until the end of the game and in the end of media. It was a long wait, but it was worth it.
Seriously,
to not stand in line.
Seriously, the high school stadium at Blue Valley Northwest is a better place to watch a game than David Booth Memorial Stadium. I truly believe that. There are 6A high school district stadiums that are better places to watch a game than at that stadium.
It's crappy. It's just awful. Let's move on.
Next question is from Exhausted Nihilist. I didn't see any footage of the governor handing over the cup to K-State. Is this normal or just a foregone conclusion that K-State never has to give it back?
Yeah, I didn't see that either. I wonder if she wasn't there.
I don't think she was there. I didn't remember seeing her down there on the field. So I assume that just means that she wasn't there.
They retired the old cup a while back. So Kansas has never had this cup. They've never had it at all. Never, not once. They don't care. They don't.
Their slogan is ridiculous. First of all, the "We Play for Kansas." You drive on I-70 and you see "We Play for Kansas" in quotes from, apparently that's what Lance Leipold said at his introductory press conference, I'm assuming. But then they have 19 Kansas kids on the roster compared to K-State's 56 or 59 or whatever the number is. I don't know off the top of my head. It's somewhere in that range. But you can't say that you play for Kansas. You represent the state when you don't care about the rivalry, because let's face it, KU fans do not care about this rivalry. We can look at the Twitter feuds and everything all we want, but if K-State loses to KU in basketball, K-State fans are frustrated. They're mad. If they lose, God forbid they lose to KU in football, obviously they're angry. But to KU fans, I literally heard this in the elevator on the way down. They stopped at the donor suites, the donor floors, and, well, the boys tried really hard. It was a fun. We were in it for a little bit. They tried really hard. But, basketball starts on Tuesday.
I know. They really didn't care because as we record this, we're watching KU beat Michigan State. This is all they care about. They would literally never win another football game if they could just stay good in basketball. They would make that deal. And I'm not sure they haven't made the deal with the devil. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Ryan Gilbert, it was your first experience in Lawrence at the football stadium, at least. Now, I
was there 2 years ago.
Oh, you were?
Wait out for the first quarter because there were not enough ticket takers.
I remember that as well.
Oh, yeah. God. Okay, it doesn't matter. That's irrelevant to the question I want to ask. When you stuck around on Saturday night in Lawrence, yes, you did, folks, and went to the local gin establishments. I assume they're serving gin. Did you tell people you were a KU football player? They probably thought you were like a defensive end.
Well, I was wearing purple, so that wouldn't have worked out.
How were you treated?
I probably heard FK State, I don't know, 25 or 30 times.
Yeah.
Just minding my own business, walking through. And I'm not bashing KU at all for that. K-State fans are the exact same way.
Absolutely.
But I heard it a lot.
Did you think it was an insult towards your alma mater or an offer for something? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Moving on.
Okay. Next question, Zach.
From Ryan, Power Cat Ryan. If K-State averages a 6-7 record over the next 5 seasons and Kansas averages a 3-9 record over the next 5 seasons, K-State will pass KU in all-time win percentage. Will this feat happen within 5 seasons? K-State has averaged a 7-6 record over the previous 4+ seasons. KU has been less than 2-10.
That's very optimistic to say Kansas will win 3 games a year.
Man,
I think you
if
could give
KU
it a
starts winning 3 games a year, it's gonna be the Lance Leipold family stadium.
Well, let's put this into perspective. If you count this season, assuming KU loses out, which I think we're all in agreement that they will, they would have to win 4 games next year for that to average the 3-9 record through 2 seasons. KU's not averaging a 3-9 record over the next 5 years. It's just not happening.
I think you'll get them better, but guys, I got to admit it. After seeing them in person, they are so far behind. I mean, they lost to Texas Tech basically 41-0. It ended up 41-14. And Tech 2 weeks later fires its coach. I mean, they are so far behind the rest of the Big 12. Programs are out there firing coaches for being as successful as KU would love. If they have the success that Matt Wells or Gary Patterson was seeing this season, they'd be overjoyed. That is the least talented version of a KU football team I've seen. At the start of the year, I actually thought they were going to be a little bit better. No, they're horrible. They stink.
I'm not so sure that if you tell Lance Leipold everything, you give him a crystal ball, he looks into the future to today, right now, where he's at. If he doesn't stay at Buffalo for another year or two and maybe try and get a job that's a little bit better than Kansas.
Yeah, I was shocked when he took it. I think he took it not fully understanding the deficit that they're in, thinking they're just bad and I can fix it. It's a cultural issue that is going to be very difficult to unwind. Bill Snyder did it here with a similar situation, a worse situation, to be honest, because you think we're complaining about the facilities at KU. They would have been cherished at Kansas State in 1988. So, I don't know. They just got so much work to do. I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves. I really wouldn't be surprised if he leaves.
I think you could give K-State 4 seasons, and this would happen easily.
I agree. The math of this just
the math. I think 5 is extremely favorable. That K-State just has to go +1 above 500 for 5 seasons. That's all they need, and KU has to go 3-9 of all
better
records.
Than what they've done in the past 5 years.
They could do this in 2.5 years potentially if K-State gets it really rolling. So
I don't know what the future holds for Tim Fitzgerald, but I do want to live long enough where K-State gets ahead in this series. So what do we got, like 15 more years of that? Where K-State needs to win?
Depending on who the record is. But
Seriously,
though.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
15.
They have different records.
Seriously, though, there is a real... When is K-State going to lose to KU? Because at some point I understand that something weird will happen and KU will beat K-State. That will happen eventually. But the arc of each program is the complete opposite right now. No matter what you think about Chris Kleiman, K-State will have talent for the next 4 years that is superior to KU's talent for the next 4 years. So unless something crazy happens, you would think that K-State would win.
The entire quarterback room comes down with some disease from a pandemic, and they're the only ones that aren't allowed to play or something like that.
What was that, 2017? When K-State almost beat K-State in Manhattan?
KU. Yes.
You really were having issues. Did you have a little stroke?
Wouldn't have been 17.
Yeah.
That would have been at KU.
It'd be 2018.
18, sorry.
Yes. David Beatty's last game.
Sorry, Fitz.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It was. And then they fired him. He actually got competitive, so they fired him.
But that was
Just weird.
Alex Delton quarterback game?
Yeah, I think so.
Bottom line is that was not an easy win.
Fitz, so you talked about this, but I would obviously was not around when Bill Snyder had just gotten the job as K-State's head coach, but I would think that turning that KU program around today is a harder task than what Bill Snyder had, based solely upon the transfer portal, based solely upon the type of the type of people that kids are today, based upon the attitude of the community, and based upon how competitive the Big 12 potentially will be with more teams inside of the conference. I think all those factors, and just the fact that it's 2021, make that such a hard job, and just as hard, if not harder, than when Bill Snyder took over.
I feel like we've talked about that on previous podcasts. And I don't know if it was when Gills was on or if it was with Riley, but I've always said, yeah, if you take all of the advantages that you have in the 21st century, equipment, facilities, whatever else. Money, you take that from today and give that to Bill Snyder 30 years ago nearly, yeah. It's no question that it's hard. It's if you are this bad today and you can't figure out a way to be successful. This is sorry, dog distraction.
Dude's like looking for permission to get on the couch, which he can do. The bottom line is when Bill Snyder came to K-State, the school had no money for football. They had no money for athletics. There weren't these big TV contracts. There's no reason in this day and age to have run down anything when it comes to college football if you're a Power 5 institution. It's shameful, it's disgraceful, and I'm honestly sick of it. That place is a crap fest. I'm getting militant about this. If they don't want to fix their damn facilities, tell them they can find a new conference. Go to the Big Ten. They'll pick you up when you're part of the American. I'm just really fed up with the attitude of KU that it's only about basketball. That's not why conferences are getting big contracts. That's not why the Big 12 sends you $25 to $30 million a year in revenue. It's for football. A little bit's for basketball. I admit it, and I admit that you carry more water in that area than anyone else in the conference, but most of these TV contracts are based on football. That's what pays the bills in college athletics. And you use the money that everyone else generates from football to feed your basketball program, and you ignore football. I'm fed up with it.
Next question is from Oiler Cat 2. Depending on how K-State finishes, what are your bowl game scenarios?
I will attend a bowl game and cover it. That's my scenarios.
The top bowl is the Texas Bowl?
No. Cheez-Its top. Of the real, okay,
right.
Alamo is, I think, of the realistic scenarios.
Right.
I think that Cheez-It is probably the peak.
If K-State can go 9-3, Cheez-It comes into play, which is now the Orlando Bowl. That was the what was the bowl?
It's been a dozen bowls. It's probably been renamed.
It was the outdoor. What was it?
It was
Camping
World.
Camping World. Now it's a Cheez-It Bowl that was in Phoenix. Now they sold out and they become because apparently Cheez-It's really big in Orlando. I don't know.
Bigger than Phoenix.
Either way, though, I don't believe that K-State will be in play for a game after the first of the year. Correct?
Yes, sir. No.
Texas Bowl.
Texas
on
Bowl.
the 4th.
So is that
the final bowl of the bowl season?
Is that a bigger
Natty
bowl than the Cheez-It Bowl?
No, it's one step below.
No, it goes Alamo, Cheez-It, Texas, Liberty, guaranteed rate, and then whatever Dallas Bowl is in the rotation.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
That's it. And all those are, you want the range, that's it. Outside of the Alamo, I mean, at 6-6, K-State could end up in one of those bowls in the Dallas area, or they could end up in Phoenix. But if you get up to 9-3, you could end up in Cheez-It.
I guess if OU and Oklahoma State both make New Year's 6, and then Iowa State and Baylor fall off, they could go to the Alamo. But
well, I mean, it's entirely possible in 2 weeks K-State will be above Baylor in the standings.
Yeah, very true.
I mean, Baylor they could be tied going into the game if the favorites win this weekend.
I think Texas Bowl is the safest projection.
Which is the one on the 4th?
Yeah.
Yes, in January. I think that's probably the safest.
Houston. Yeah.
Probably Arkansas would be my guess at this point. Hooray.
I would like to see.
I mean, that's just how it kind of lines up. Arkansas is 6-3 right now, too.
What's the bowl in Phoenix?
You could play Mississippi State.
Guaranteed rate.
Maybe Auburn. Florida's pretty much fallen out unless K-State goes to the Liberty Bowl, and if Florida's able to turn it around. But
about Clemson, didn't we have a projection on Clemson?
Clemson might be falling below the Cheez-It Bowl, and that's the only ACC opportunity for K-State.
I would like to see LSU and maybe instead of Arkansas. 7-5 LSU.
I don't want to go to the Liberty Bowl to play LSU.
I don't want to go to the Liberty Bowl at all. Let's not talk about it anymore. And nothing against Liberty Bowl. It's just we've seen it a couple times. That's a horrendous story.
If we want to talk about facilities, and we're talking about KU.
Is the Liberty Bowl better than KU's Memorial Stadium? Were you delving into this on the message board?
Yeah, barely.
See, I'm not as familiar with the actual facility, the big facility, but I think if I recall interview and all that, it's a better situation in Memphis.
That's what I said. The press box is
horrible.
Worse at Liberty Bowl. Everything else, slight edge.
The press box is almost to the point of being condemned in Memphis. I mean, their big push now is to build the new suite structure to go on that side with the press box, kind of like K-State did, but it'll be part of the stadium because of the way the bowl's configured. That's what they're trying to get through the city to do. But I'm just Memphis. If you really want to be in the Big 12, you start planning and building an on-campus stadium. You find a spot. You just got to do it. That if you look around college realignment, the on-campus stadium movement is really strong and important.
Final question. The first half is from El Camino Cat. Is Felix Anudike-Uzomah one of the best defensive ends in the country? Do you think he will be a finalist for the Ted Hendricks Award for the best defensive end in the nation?
No, I don't think he's even a nominee, is he?
I don't know.
I'm not sure if he's on the list.
I'm not sure, but
is it too late to make a list?
I don't know.
I don't think it's too late.
I don't know, but I don't think he's going to be overly recognized on a national basis. I think after we get through this 3 games, he'll be well known through the Big 12.
I think he'll be first team Big 12.
I would agree. He is probably the most impactful defensive end right now. I'm not going to say best because I don't think he is. I'm sure there's someone out there who, let's put it this way, if he was in the draft, he wouldn't be the top guy. But we're talking college defensive ends here, and he is really, really disruptive and
as
good.
a sophomore. Keep that in mind. I think he'll be making watch lists next year at the start of the season. It's very rare for someone who comes into their sophomore season having not played at all to just jump on, watch list and then have an amazing season and then get, bumped up. So I could see him at the end of the season. You talk about being on all conference lists. Definitely. I think there's an outside chance he could be Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year.
There is.
I think that there's an outside chance of that, but unfortunately, I don't think he'll be on any awards.
Brian Hanley and I got into this quite a bit, that we feel like both Daniel Green and Felix are NFL caliber guys.
I agree.
And you've got to have that on your defense. And they need more. They just don't have enough of that level guys to offset some of the other people, but they're getting there. It's improvement. That's it for the first half of the Power Cat Questions podcast. On the other side, I assume we're going to talk a little basketball a little bit as Kansas State tips off its season Wednesday night at Bramlage Coliseum against the Florida A&M Rattlers. Now, I watch Yellowstone, so I know how dangerous a rattler is.
GoPowerCat.com's PowerCat podcast continues after this short break.
The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/247 and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Must be 21 plus and present in Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, permitted parishes only, Massachusetts, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, or Wyoming. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700, or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, or call 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York, or visit oasas.ny.gov/gambling. Standard text messaging rates apply. Sports betting is void in Georgia, Hawaii, Utah, and other states where prohibited.
Ready to ride? I thought you'd never ask.
Now streaming on Paramount Plus. It's the new original series, Lawmen, Bass Reeves.
Bass dedicated to justice.
From executive producer Taylor Sheridan, co-creator of Yellowstone, starring executive producer and Emmy Award-nominated actor David Oyelowo. It's the untold story.
I'm warning you.
Of the greatest American lawman.
Your wicked days are done.
Lawmen, Bass Reeves. New original series, now streaming exclusively on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back to the Power Cat Podcast. Now, let's return to the GPC studios.
Welcome back to the Power Cat Questions Podcast, brought to you by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. University of Kansas is going to win their opener. I know everyone's excited to know it. It's basketball season in Lawrence. They have won another game. Oh, no.
You know they chant it before the game in football games because they know they won't do it after.
Mm-hmm. I heard it. It's
kind of sad.
That's kind of weird. Our segment sponsors are Tanner's and the High-Low. Make sure you support all of our local businesses here in Manhattan. They've had a rough year, as all local businesses have. So when you're in town, make sure you shop local, eat local, drink local. Go see Ryan Gilbert at his local place, which isn't a sponsor. Here we go. More questions from Wabash Station. I'm only trusting Zach this week.
First question of the second half is from KSU number 1. How do you like that 4:30 p.m. kickoff against Baylor?
Is that weird? Just when you think you've got everything figured out, FS1 goes, heck with it. We're going to play a 4:30 game.
I love it.
I'm curious what FS1 has going on. Like,
basketball.
do they have soccer going on?
Soccer or basketball? It has to be.
Yeah, they've got something.
Like something's
got to
be preceding 4:30. They're just like, well, here's the window.
I like it. I don't know how you guys feel. I think it's awesome.
Well, I mean, it's going to be weird about it.
No, it's probably the worst window outside of being a night game.
What's wrong with the night game?
I don't like night for work purposes, for the site purposes. No, it's about this. No, when you do a night game, you make all this content, but everybody's asleep because you get out of media. Like 2 hours after the game, everybody's in Aggieville doing whatever. They're not reading about the game. I want you guys to be on the website. That's why I like 11 a.m. games. You're on the website at 7 o'clock at night on a Saturday.
True.
Fitz talks about the best kickoff times for Aggieville and for local businesses. Well, this is the perfect time.
2:30 is great. Mm-hmm. Those businesses love 2:30.
I think.
But 4:30 is going to be weird at this time of year because it's going to be pitch black by halftime.
Yeah.
It's going to be it's technically a night game. Really.
It is. I mean, 4:30 right now, the sun is going down. Very, very strange. That's a huge game. I think Baylor's really good. I just think Dave Aranta's done an amazing job. And they weren't depleted in talent as much as people want to say. They had some dudes. They had some really good players on that team. And they're all stepping up now. Won't be surprised he ends up at LSU. I'm hoping he ends up at LSU. I'm sure LSU's thinking bigger and better, but I think they need to stop window shopping and go with quality over kind of a splash, which is all they've been doing.
So if it's a 4:30 kick, they will honor seniors at around 4-ish. Think about how when they take those pictures, it's going to be pretty light outside.
That'll be cool.
Then
twilight, almost.
It's literally the sun going down on their football career.
Yeah.
There we go. It's poetic. It's the poetic edition of the Power Cat Questions podcast.
Next question is from AgCat 2019. What will it take for K-State to start selling out the bill again? Does it strictly hinge on having a double-digit win type of season? Does it require elite skill position players, staff, or what are your thoughts?
You know, what's interesting about the stadium is we all thought they weren't done adding seats, that they'd go into the corners now where the Shamrock Zone is and add more seats. But as it turns out, they were exactly right. The stadium's the appropriate size, and not because the fan base can't support it, but because the viewing habits of so many people has changed. Most places are seeing a drop in attendance because it's easier and more comfortable to sit and watch at home on your big 72-inch 4K TV. I mean, the experience of going to the stadium isn't what it used to be, and people aren't going in the same numbers. I'm not sure K-State will ever sell out on a regular basis. I think you're right. They will only be selling out games in really high-profile seasons. If they've got a run at the Big 12 title, it becomes intriguing if K-State gets more competitive in the new Big 12, you know, not just because Oklahoma's leaving, but maybe they get improvement, starts building. How will fans react to not having an Oklahoma or Texas on the home schedule every year? I mean, will that impact things at all? I mean, I don't think it will in Manhattan and straighten out Cincinnati or something for those teams. I think K-State fans are unique because they really do typically show up for their team. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. They're showing up for their team.
Right.
But the reality is, folks, Kansas State is not a big fan base. It just isn't. And trust me, I know, because I literally overestimated the size of the fan base when I started Power Cat Illustrated, the magazine. You know, when I found out that in that 50,000-seat stadium, they only had X number of actual ticket accounts, I was like, well, how do we have almost 6,000 print subscribers? You know, it just didn't add up. When you take out the student tickets and you start thinking about how many people have 4, 6, 8 tickets, there are not that many ticket holders. It is not a big fan base. It's a rabidly loyal fan base. So they got to continue to grow it, though. They got to get back into Kansas City. When they were really good, people would come from Kansas City, just people, to watch good football.
I think another answer to this question, Fitz, it has to do with the future of broadcasting. I know that our boards have been talking about this over at Wabash Station. People were really frustrated that there has been remote announcers for the K-State games.
I don't understand that philosophy at all.
You don't understand why people are frustrated?
No, why they're doing remote.
No, I'm with you. So I think, quite honestly, if that becomes a trend where it's like, oh, well, K-State's going to get relegated to having remote announcers, well, I don't even want to deal with that, so I'm just going to go to the game.
Yeah, could be.
I don't think there's going to be that many people that are like that. There might be some, but
I think if the future goes more towards budget constraints, and because you watch games on TV and it's like you can tell when they're not there. I mean, that was an issue we had all of last season with football games, with basketball games. It was frustrating. You know, you had to sit here, even if you're covering a team, and listening to a guy go crazy after he makes a 3-point shot 2 seconds later, right? I mean, it's frustrating, and it takes away from the game. I think it really does. So I think that as we move out of the pandemic stage of sports viewing, people are going to come back to the games, especially if the trend of that was set during the pandemic of big broadcast companies stays. I think people are going to go back.
I actually disagree. I think that the pandemic, K-State had been largely unaffected by the trend of decreasing in attendance. K-State, they're loyal, they're rabid, they'll go to games, but the not being able to go to games during the COVID year, during 2020, being able to sit at home and say, you know, this kind of beats going to the stadium, taking a whole day of having to go to a football game. I can just sit here and watch it. and take 3 hours, and my day's still, I can do whatever else I want to do with my day. And I think there's probably a little bit of a carryover for that this year. But one thing you guys haven't mentioned is K-State, and this kind of goes to the whole president search thing, and K-State as an institution as a whole, K-State's down nearly 5,000 students from what they were a few years ago. When you look at season ticket packages, what's a season ticket package they offer? Young alumni. How many young alumni is the university pumping out compared to what they were 5 years ago? A lot less. So there's a lot less people to buy those young alumni tickets that are going to buy other tickets, once they're off the being young alumni. There's less people being pumped into the potential ticket buying base. So I think that, when K-State starts seeing growth from a student perspective, I think that's when you'll see more attendance growth, because, more students on campus also means more student attendance, but that gives more people the opportunity to buy tickets once they graduate. Yeah.
Families too. Students' families that come down for the games, purchase season tickets. Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
I want to jump off onto another topic, and it's based on what you guys have been discussing with the TV. And people are complaining about the quality of the broadcast, quality of the announcers. The reality is people aren't paying for journalism. People aren't supporting journalism. And what happens is when we start to see fewer and fewer young journalists going into radio to call games, most of them are going into radio now to do talk radio. But back in my day, you went into radio to call as sports, to call football games and basketball games. Well, that's the feeders for people working their way up. The TV industry let their talent age out. Tim Brando's a perfect example. The guy shouldn't be on the air. Ron Gilbert, I know you're a big fan.
Aren't we all?
Don't you spend every Sunday surfing Twitter for your mentions, even though you weren't mentioned directly?
Yeah, exactly.
Look, they've just let their talent deteriorate, and there's not enough talent in the pipe, in part because they haven't been nourishing it, but they just don't have enough people. And now we're going to pay the price for letting those announcers age, because now we got to watch guys struggle to get better. And they will. You can see it. It's like anything else. We're going to go through it in officiating too. This group is going to age out, and we're going to struggle to find enough basketball officials for one. Football's a little bit different. It's really, truly more of a weekend job where you can find good people. Journalism is so difficult right now because everyone wants whatever's free out there. And the end result of that is a lot of talented people go seek other professions. We've seen it here in Manhattan. John Kurtz has left the industry. My sidekick on The Drive, Scott Chasen, left the industry. A lot of good young journalists are leaving the industry. And it's just a problem. And this is the end result. You don't have enough trickling up. You don't have enough work. And you end up with idiots on ESPN hosting shows that they're not capable of hosting. It's just ongoing frustration of mine.
Good old boys club, too.
A lot of that.
I get
and the good old boys club's changed dramatically, and I'm not going to get into all that, but it's not working the same way it used to work, but it's still in place in a different manner.
Well, a lot of it, too, is, you're a former football player. Oh, you must know how to call a game. Or you must be a great color commentator. You played football. You must be good. So we're going to throw you on TV even though you've never called a game before. Look at now. I actually like Robert Griffin III. I think he does a decent job.
He's
on
unconventional, but does a good job.
Right. The very first game I watched with him, he's on color commentary. I want to say it's week 0, and they're doing, I want to say, a SWAT game maybe. And there's a throw there, and he's while he's in the booth, it's like, oh, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, but I almost feel like they literally are throwing guys in without enough training.
Jason Witten is another example of that on Monday Night Football when he retired and then ended up coming back, but he was terrible when he was in the booth. So, yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, I just don't think they're putting enough effort into talent. They really, I think actually, I kind of disagree with you. I think there's a wealth of talent, of potential announcers out there. But the problem is you're going to hire a guy like, I'm just pulling out names, like Robert Griffin, as opposed to a Curry Sexton, who might be really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. They've got to figure it out. Like I've argued for basketball, they need to set up a better system for training, evaluating, and nurturing young officials. They need to do the same with on-air talent. But we're seeing a significant bleeding out of talent in the industry. It sucks. It really does.
From KSU number 1, Tim Brando on Twitter. Hang on. Come on.
God.
Tim Brando on Twitter called the college football playoffs a sham. Do you think there will be more pressure to finally let the actual results on the field determine playoff participation?
You can say what you want about Tim Brando. I think he's regressed as an announcer to the point where they need to remove him, but he's willing to say what's on his mind. And I'm surprised it hasn't gotten him canceled by his boss yet, but he does work for Fox.
Yeah,
they don't own the rights to the show, to the playoff or the show where they unveil things. No, they're doing it right now, and I missed it. I agree with him. I could go on for a long time here complaining about what exactly the college football playoff is up to. I was incredibly disappointed in those first set of standings. I don't understand at all what they were doing there with those standings, but it
is a sham, though. Let's be real.
Or the whole Oregon thing is just inexplicable to me.
What's Gene doing up there?
They have the worst loss of any of those teams, and yet they got the second highest ranking of one-loss teams behind Alabama. And I understand Alabama is Alabama, but if you're a proven unbeaten team like Oklahoma or Cincinnati, you're parsing the quality of victories while ignoring a loss. What? I'm sorry if a victory didn't look good to you, but it's better than losing. I don't understand that. I don't get it.
I feel like they do it, at least the first rankings, they're on behind me. I don't know what they are yet. But the first rankings, it's almost like they designed it to be for Twitter, for website
it's
clicks.
A TV show.
It's a TV show for viewers. It's all about discussion, it seemed like. It just seemed like, let's create the most clickbaity discussion thing for a college football playoff that we can possibly create and put that on air and have Kirk Herbstreit give his take, and then everybody can go onto a message board and talk about why they agree or disagree.
If I was put onto a committee and they said, I want to explain to you that we're going to do a little drama here and make some picks, I said, okay, well, I'm going to pick up my stuff and leave now because I'm here to rank teams as they've performed on the field, not play games.
I like the idea. Personally, I think if they did something like this for college basketball where they had the selection committee come out with their top 25 teams.
Well, they did that. They've done that the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think that if they do that maybe to more of an expanded format to where you kind of know if you're a Bruce Weber who's most likely going to be on the bubble, instead of going off of the first 25, we're ranked number 47. Well, now we know where we are. I think something like that would be, worthwhile. But I think these rankings are, to be honest, it's frustrating as a college football fan because a lot of the teams that are in the top 25, I guarantee you, are not top 25 teams in the country.
And it'll work itself out by the end of the year is the problem. It should work itself out, but now
it won't if you're Cincinnati.
Right. If you're Cincinnati, you're screwed.
I don't.
First place.
I don't get it. It's not like Cincinnati's not playing anyone, guys. They won at Notre Dame. They beaten Indiana, which was a good team supposedly at the start of the year. They haven't turned out that way. But the American isn't soft. I mean, okay, it's not Power 5. I get it. But it's not the MAC. I mean, ask Mississippi State. They lost to Memphis, which is an average team in the American this year. Tulsa, which is a bad team in the American, gave a lot of people trouble, including Oklahoma State. The American isn't bad, so to dismiss their wins in that conference is so arrogant.
Just the construction of trying to defend why you put someone somewhere by including other teams that they beat into the rankings is just ridiculous.
What they did with Oregon and Ohio State was
obvious. Putting Minnesota in? Like,
shameful,
what?
just disgusting. I don't understand. Gills, how do you feel about this stuff? You're just
You guys
painfully
are all
silent.
Clowns. This is what they want you to do. They want you to talk about it.
You're calling us sheeps?
Sheep.
Sheeps?
Sure. Is that the right term?
They want us to do this, to talk about it?
It's a TV show, like I said. They want people to talk about it. None of this matters until the final college football playoff rankings come out in week, 16 or whatever. That's it.
Like, it'll work itself out.
Yeah,
It's just, it's silly just seeing the reasoning behind the rankings right now, I think.
I don't know. Cincinnati has no chance of getting in. If everyone starts losing, they'll find a team to move above them. They really don't stand a chance here.
Final question of the podcast, and time for Gills to get
out of here.
Participation from 3G Wildcat. Who impressed you with their play in the exhibition game? Who, if any, disappointed?
I think you have to look at this game in two halves. Because the first half, K-State didn't really look too good. They were nervous. You could tell it was the first game. There was some rust on that team, and nobody really stuck out to me personally. But second half, Logan Landers kicked it up a notch. And to be honest, I don't want to say he was getting bullied, but you could tell he's a freshman. And he was going up against, I know Pitt State's a inferior opponent, but he was going up against some older boys. And he was kind of getting bullied around in the paint. And he stepped it up in the second half, had a great game, promising future for him. And then Selton Miguel, he was probably the player of the game, the other player that stuck out in a good way. And you look at Marquise Noel, he answers both of these questions. He was good and bad. He had 6 turnovers, but he also had some acrobatic plays and, some good plays. But this is just me, and I don't want to, be too harsh on Noel, but he's not good enough to have that role. He's not as good as Jameis Winston. I don't think that it's worth the risk of him having those turnovers if it pays off with a deep 3 or whatever. Because he just 3 or 4 feet behind the arc just lobbed up a 3. It went in, but if that's one of those shots that if it doesn't go in, Bruce Weber is going to be angry, I
think this is the time to do it, though. I think if you are going to be that kind of player and that's part of your game, this is the time to find out if you're going to be able to do that.
Nigel Pack should be the one doing that, not Marquise Noel.
But that's not Nigel Pack. That's not who he is. I think that's more of what Noel actually is. But I'm with you. You can't have 6 turnovers in a game and expect to win. Or expect to be good.
Division 5 team or whatever Pitt State is.
Yeah.
Division 2.
Same thing. How are you going to go up against, I don't know, Wichita State or Nebraska? Not even a Big 12 team.
My guess is he was just trying to make too much happen.
Yeah.
It was his first game in purple, and he's trying to make something happen.
Well, I'm just afraid that's how it's going to be game in and game out, and I hope not.
No, hold on. They're unveiling the rankings right now. Cincinnati jumped after a ho-hum performance over the weekend. Alabama struggles to beat what we all recognize as a pretty average LSU team.
Go Tigers.
They stay exactly. Oregon, I assume, won. They won, but their loss, Stanford, got absolutely slaughtered by Utah, right? Mm-hmm. How does that not ever reflect on Oregon? How come Cincinnati is being punished for not playing anyone, but Oregon has a horrible loss and they're above them?
Ohio State's still has to play Iowa. They still have to play Michigan State, and they still have to play Purdue. They're going to lose one of those games, so I don't think hopefully it doesn't matter. And I
love how we just throw in Purdue. Just like, Purdue's there. Got to be careful.
Well, here's the thing.
A 2-loss Ohio State will not get in over Cincinnati.
What I hope happens here is Oregon stays on its current path and Ohio State loses. Because I bet you we see Oregon drop at that point. When they don't serve a purpose of propping up Ohio State, who they beat, that's the only reason they're there, is to say, well, Oregon beat Ohio State, so they got to be one spot of Ohio State. And it's all, you can just see how they manipulate it. It's so obvious. If Ohio State loses, I bet you Oregon drops too. Oh, we don't need them up there anymore. But Cincinnati has moved to 5th, so they're knocking on the door.
Who's 6 and 7?
I'm working on it here, buddy. I'm working on it. We hit the pause button, and I'm slowly unveiling the standings to you, my colleagues.
We also hit the pause button on basketball, but yes. I am interested to see Davion Bradford when he is able to come back, because Casey Eziegu did not look that good against Pitt State. I get
I don't think
foul
he's fully
trouble,
healthy. Yeah, he was in foul trouble, but
they're going to have to rely on him and Landers until Bradford comes back, which he's not going to play, it sounds like, tomorrow. He's not probably going to be back to full strength maybe until the Kansas City Classic, maybe? So I think it's a completely different team with him back.
I just like the fact that they have some depth. I mean, they were able to roll Logan Landers up into the 5 to play him. Same with Carlton Lingard if he ever gets healthy again in his lifetime. Landers is a 4. That's why he was recruited. Bruce Weber said that on Tuesday's teleconference. That that's what he's been practicing. That's why he was recruited, to be a stretch 4. But he has the flexibility to go big. So, by the way, Zach, Michigan and Michigan State round out the top 7.
Okay.
Because go Big Ten.
When's Purdue get up in there?
So let's put it this way. You have 3 Big Ten teams with a loss ahead of an unbeaten Big 12 team.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
They aren't in the SEC yet.
give it one more year. Or 2.
3 one-loss Big Ten teams are better than Oklahoma. Now, look, maybe they are. Maybe you're just looking at it saying, well, they're better teams. But you can't say that in the vacuum of wins and losses. You can't ignore wins and losses.
Like, I feel like they do this because they know that other teams have to play each other. Like, it's like a bracket.
Right.
It's like, well, like what they did with like Alabama and Texas A&M, like the first, I think it might have been the very first year or a while, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago or something. They're in the 1 and 4 seed. Oh, guess what? They still have to play on the regular season. So it's just all for pretend. It's all for television. That's what this is.
So frustrating. But it's basketball season in Lawrence. So we can all feel better about that. It is basketball season in Manhattan on Wednesday night. As we record this on Tuesday night, it shows up on Wednesday. Make sure you tune in to the Plus. I assume it's on the Plus. Florida A&M. One of the great college football bands in all of the land.
Yes.
They won't be coming to the game.
Rats.
Damn it. That's it for the Power Cat Questions podcast, sponsored by The Fridge. Thank you for listening. We're going to let Ryan Gilbert go to work now. He's done with this work. He's got more work to do, making drinks. Mostly margaritas. No idea what that accent was. I have no idea. That was the worst accent ever.
Yeah, you sound like a pirate.
Thank you for listening to the Power Cat Podcast. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Power Cat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowerCat.com.
If you want to win your fantasy football league, it starts right now. The offseason is the best time to get ahead of the competition. We'll help you win your league on the Fantasy Football Today podcast, part of CBS Sports Podcast Network. Fantasy Football Today has 3 episodes every week following the latest news, giving you early rankings, early sleepers, breakouts, and busts. So if you're a dedicated fantasy football manager, check out the most dedicated podcast, Fantasy Football Today. Download and follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere podcasts are found.